welcome back.
As mentioned prior to the commercial break, we will be discussing in this segment early childhood development.
That's right.
And we have been joined on set by Dr. Alberto August. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We will be discussing everything we need to know about early childhood development.
Yes.
As much as
Well, we know this is your area of expertise. This is where you have done a substantial amount of work and published books and whatnot. And it is Child Stimulation Month, or early childhood development is being promoted in all corners. But it is something that we don't necessarily explain as to what it entails and why it's important. So I want to start off there. What is the definition of early childhood education and development?
early childhood education and development entails stimulation of children from 0 to 8 years old. So this goes out to especially parents for them to be aware of the importance of stimulation, importance of being interactive with your child. You see, it's not just talking with your child, it's not just playing with your child, but it's actually a learning experience. It's a development of brain cells, it's a development of what you call synapses. And just to give a little education to the parents and the idea of early childhood stimulation, yes, we talk about preschool, but it begins way before preschool. As a matter of fact, it begins 3 years before preschool. Even at conception, you could start stimulating a child inside of you. And so what happens, what the parent needs to understand is that at birth, we have 100 billion of these neurons, brain cells, already developed in the brain. Now, our role is to get these neurons to start interacting with each other. And so we call these synapses. And that is very important. And how do we do that? We do that by talking with them. We do that by touching them. We do that by entertaining them, by reading to them, by taking them places, let them explore their sight, their touch, their smell, their taste. You explore everything that you could ever think about a child.
This is so important because I think even before we move into the preschool discussion, a lot of parents don't think about this. You know, babies don't talk. We never understand what they're saying. We know what the cries mean, and that means feeding or sleep or change. But there is so much more interaction that is important at that time. And it's interesting, in conversations regarding ECD, we're always told, don't talk, baby talk to babies.
Don't infantilize the child.
Right. It's because in a normal environment, in a natural environment, we don't use, and in the dictionary and all the scripts, we don't hear anything about baba and hase and dagi. No. It's a dog, it's a horse, you see. And indeed, we might not understand them, but they understand us. You see, at the very early age of 2, a child has all these stimulation, all these neurons and synapses as much developed as an adult. At the age of 3, a child is learning twice as much as 2 adults put together at the age of 3. So that's the amount of interaction that's happening in the brain for them. So indeed.
So the brain is like super powered.
Absolutely, and that's a great time. It's called the window of opportunity from 0 to 8. That's the window of opportunity. If you want to create a great child, if you want to create a very smart, kind, intelligent child, that's the time to begin. And you will notice, sometimes you hear parents asking, I don't know where they get that behavior from. It's from them. It's from them.
Or somebody they were exposed
to. They want to mirror what they see.
And I've seen it several times in the general public. I look at coming off the bus and I see this dad looking at this other person coming off the bus. And you see the child with the same expression. So the language development, the social emotional development, the physical, the cognitive development, is learned from an early age. And we are there to guide them as they go about.
Dr. August, talk to us a little bit, because you talk about stimulation, and I think that is so key, what you expose babies and toddlers to. But even after a baby is born, touch is important. In other words, how you hold them, when you hold them. What does this have to do with their brain development?
Absolutely. It stimulates them. It stimulates the brain. Now, many people, I think you heard about this talking, don't pick up the baby because you want to spile or you get used to hand. There's no such thing as a baby get used to hand. The baby cries, and that's good. The baby needs to be touched. Sometimes you see parents even putting on that little mitten on their hands. That's not recommended, you see, because they need to expose these little neurons inside their fingers and all these little senses of touch. So it's good to touch them, massage them, exercise with them from an early age so that they learn to develop what you call their gross or their fine motor skills. Very important. It will help them to know that they're being loved, which is one of
Yeah.
the main factors, you
Yeah.
know, that is needed. The first, you need to be loved, and of course the others will play it roll out.
The reason I brought that up is because we have seen in studies later on that when we look at some of the problems we face with violence, one of the main recommendations coming out from Dr. Herbert Gale was hug your boys.
Yes.
And this starts from a very young age. You know, I was privy to a statistic last year or the year before, and it was looking at exclusive breastfeeding in the country. What I find most fascinating, while we're doing better than we used to do before, is that our boys are less exclusively breastfed than our girls, which means parents make a decision from very early on the treatment that will give boys versus girls. So let's talk about that area.
Very important. From 0 to 6 months, a child should be breastfed and solely breastfeed for 6 months. And I wrote a little document called Positive Talk, and it is indicated in there, you know, tips for mothers and tips for fathers from 0 to 1. Then I also have tips for the first year, the second year, and the third year, you know. And of course, breastfeeding is because breastfeeding has everything that a child needs, you know. The body, the female body naturally develops these, create these nutrients that is necessary for growth and development of a child.
I think the challenge with that, however, most women these days are reluctant to breastfeed because they're conscious of their body and the effect that may have on their breasts down the road. So you find that women are a bit kind of touchy, if I may, when it comes to breastfeeding. And then of course too the stigma of it, because sometimes it creates a sense of controversy with either breastfeeding in public and that sort of a thing.
I'm glad it's not a controversy here in Belize, you know.
I know.
But yes, so that's good. Even in the hospitals, you know, they promote, you know, you can
Yeah.
only breastfeed, which is wonderful in the clinics, you know, which is good. And indeed, yes, and some working mothers may think, well, I need to go to work, I can't breastfeed. But there's also the pump, you know, that you could use, you know, extract it, you know, and leave it there. And so you could solely do breastfeeding for at least 0 to 6 months. That is the recommended.
So when you talk about childhood development, it starts from conception, you said, but breastfeeding is definitely an integral
Absolutely.
role in that.
Yes.
Now,
I think, sorry, one of the things that I find interesting as a parent, the idea of being able to talk to the child from being in the womb. I think it's a part of the development of the child as well. It creates that sense of familiarity because in my mind, the child is listening and familiarizing him or herself with your voice and the environment outside of the womb. And I think that is very critical.
Yes, already they are developed senses and they can hear, they can recognize voices, they can recognize their dad's voice, their mom's voice. And even when they come out, a child can make as all the songs and all the languages in the world, all the songs of all the languages in the world after birth.
so I mean, there's so much information when you talk about children and their learning, and I think we have a huge responsibility to change behaviors that we thought were okay in the past. One of the things, and I see you have it highlighted here, is what we tell children from a young age. From before they can answer us back, from before they can talk to us. Don't tell a child they're going to be rude, they're going to be a bad boy. Don't tell them they're going to be stubborn, they're going to, and fill them with negative information. Why is that? I mean, people will say, they can't even understand what we're saying.
They can absolutely understand. You're brainwashing your child. You don't say it to your child, or let anyone say to your child, oh, this is going to be a rude boy or a rude girl. No, no, no. He's going to be my little monster. No, no, no. He's going to be a nice, wonderful person. He's going to be a successful person. He's going to be a great person. He's going to be a kind, considerate person.
And that's also part of what we consider positive reinforcement.
Right, it is.
In terms of being able to help the child develop self-esteem, confidence, and these types of things. I think when you tell it, not do that, you're bad, you're too rude, that doesn't do much to help the child being able to understand why not to do certain things or why they must do certain things. I think it's lost in our society, though. The idea of positive reinforcement.
We have this idea, and I have it in my document. Child give trouble. I always say to parents, your child doesn't give trouble. your child behaves in ways you don't understand.
Yeah.
Because they do things for a reason. They might knock down the vase. It's because I want to break a vase because...
just because.
Just, right. They break it because probably it's a song they like to hear, the spluttering sound.
They want to see what will happen.
Yes, right. They're exploring.
Curiosity.
It's curiosity, indeed.
Costly curiosity.
It might. Right. So don't get angry. Yeah, it was curious. My concern would be, are you safe? Are you okay? Did you get a splinter? What happened?
Yeah.
Rather than the vase and start incredible, say, railing up with the child because of a broken vase. Come on, you could get another vase. You can't get another child or put back that you've already insulted a child, because it will stay with them.
Yeah.
Those scars stay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe in a healthy balance of everything too, though. I mean, at the end of the day, if the vase is a costly one and it's a rare object, while I understand fully that as parents, we need to be able to weigh things accordingly. You first find out if the child has been injured based on that, for instance.
Right.
But then you also have to explain to him what he has done.
Yes.
You can't you can't just be concerned with one aspect of it and overlook the fact that what you did was wrong.
Of course, and keep in mind, they don't, at this point, wrong, 0 to 3, you're indicating wrong,
Yeah.
I wanted to see whether it makes a particular sound, or what happens if I slide it this far,
Yeah.
Gravity,
Yeah.
So you need to think about it. I think about it positively, and that's how I grew my 2 children, thinking about it positively, I never hit them.
Baby-proof your house if you have to.
Yeah.
So if it's valuable, unfortunately, just put it
should
away
be
And
for
then
that
just a
period
little
of time.
higher, and you'll find out too that you explain to them, they will understand, you do it. I can remember, my most recent, my daughter, we had all the vases down low, but we told her, careful, you break it. And she would step back, and they understand, they listen and they understand, but we take it for granted that they don't, and they absolutely understand every word that you say.
Yeah.
But of course, they're curious and they actually want to find out if it's true too.
Yeah, and psychologists say you get the behavior that you give the most attention to. So it depends on how you react after something happens. I want to ask, it's a notorious time when a child turns 2 and they're struggling with communication. We call it terrible twos, and we see the tantrums. We know the tantrums come. And that is, I think, perhaps one of the most difficult times for parents. 1-year-old, you can be a little bit more lenient with them. But when they hit 2 and they start with throwing themselves on the floor and screaming and shouting, what do you do?
Part of development. I don't call it terrible 2. I'll call it terrific 2s.
Terrific 2.
Yes, a terrific 2.
I don't know which parent with a kid screaming on the floor says that. How do we change the perspective though?
One, you don't fight fire with fire. You don't be shouting at the child because they're throwing a tantrum. You need to relax yourself. You need to calm. You need to show the child how to behave because they're copying. I mean, if you fight fire with fire, if you start throwing your tantrum at the child, it just simply magnifies it, and the child will exactly. So it doesn't make sense to do that. You relax. You be a calm parent. You be a patient parent. That's hard to do. I know.
Yeah.
Especially coming out of work at 5 o'clock. You're extremely
exhausted,
tired.
yeah.
But I think about it positively too. I think about coming out of work, how's they work. My time is my child. You see, and this is what we need to think about. Get away from the paperwork, from the teaching, from whatever you're doing at the bank or wherever, the business, and I'm going to spend time with my child.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the dynamic between both parents? If you have a child growing up in a household where there is a mother and a father, you find that oftentimes the mother is the more strict one. The father is a bit more laid back,
the father
assertive
is fearful
when needs
to discipline.
Assertive when needs be, but you find that the father takes more of a backseat to discipline. In terms of these, the dynamics of it and the age range we're talking about, what are your thoughts on that?
Communication. I think it has a lot to do with communication, and I can remember experiencing that too. I'm the more laid back, nice kind. Mom is the more, I'm going to discipline you. You need to understand. I'm like, oh, it's okay, everything is fine. But yeah, it's communication, and you need a balance. You need a balance, and this is how the children they learn as well, because you need a balance. You can't just have one. So they need to learn. It's a learning experience for them. And when it comes to mom and dad, it's just communication and understanding each other, So So I'm going to be more laid back. You could be the discipline. I'm going to respect your decision. You respect my, what I'm doing in the household.
And that's one of the things we hear as well, that don't argue in front of the child how to parent. So if you're going to say, leave them alone, then you should speak with your partner to at least say...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And children are smart too.
Yeah.
Daddy said no, right, so they'll go to mommy, you know. Mommy said yeah.
They tend to want to play one against the other.
They're absolutely very intelligent beings, and hence the reason we need to guide them in the most positive direction.
And just because the pictures are flashing on the screen, it's such a
tantrum.
visual thing. What do you do with children who are throwing tantrums? I have a funny story. I had one friend who has children, and she says, listen, my child throws a tantrum in the store, I'm going to leave them. I won't react. Not leave them in the store, but not necessarily. Because the embarrassment of the judgment of others, that you can't control your child, is something sometimes that people respond to. In other words, stop because we're in public, or I'll deal with you when we get home, rather than acknowledging that this is a part of their development. So I always remember that, because she said, other mothers will understand, the rest won't matter.
When it comes to the tantrums, I take a different approach. I do my best to calm down my child, or we should do our best to calm down our children, and to see, what is it that you want? Can we get it later? Let's see if we could compromise. And then you teach them compromise, Okay, what do you want? And every time they go into the store, they want something. And that's the reason for the tantrum. They want something. So if they go, okay, I'm going to get it to you later, okay? See, and they learn compromise. Let us compromise. And you teach them these words
follow
too,
through what you say.
Yes,
because if you keep
absolutely.
on saying later and later never happens, that's why they throw the tantrum.
Or you could remind them, I got one for you yesterday, you see, and they will understand. And you basically let them calm down. At home, I do several things. For example, I would start singing. I would read a book. I would start acting like a clown. Dads and moms are clowns sometimes, So you need to entertain them, and then eventually they get into their tantrum.
So distract them.
Yes, just to distract that behavior. Yes.
Now, let's move into the meat of the issue, and I think this is key. Unfortunately, we see that with technology, it's become a lot easier to distract children with tablets and television. And oftentimes, before a child even enters the school system, people put on Baby First or Nickelodeon or whatever, and have the child watch TV.
TV becomes the babysitter.
Yes.
No. Well, that's okay, but my approach to it is dad or mom needs to be there. See, because you need to make it interactive. It's not just put the child in front of a tablet or a computer or a television and let the television babysit. Sometimes you need to interact with the child. What is that? Who is that? Although you know what it is. I mean, what did they just say? Why do you think they said that? To develop the brain.
Sing the songs with
exactly. So you could be there with them. You don't have to be there throughout the whole half an hour, however long they're there, but at least let them know that you're there paying attention. You stop by every now and again to see how they're doing and what they're doing, what they're looking at, and ask them questions to stimulate thinking. Why? Especially why questions. Because they too like to ask the why questions. So why did they say that? And you'll start seeing the ball spinning up there from them, the wheels turning.
Yeah. What other ways can parents at home stimulate their children?
Oh my, there's so many ways. I say to parents, read books. Read books to your children. Read a book every day if you can. If not a whole book, at least a part of a book. Show them a book. Basic things, animals, teach them about animals, teach them about, teach them about the gecko, teach them that the gecko is a reptile. 2, 3, they're not going to remember. They will. They'll not remember now, but what they will find out, the more you talk with children, it stays in the brain. You see, your brain it doesn't disappear out of the brain. It stays there. And so some parents go, how do you know that? And they remember easily. So after 8 years old and they get into the later years in primary school and in high school, they start remembering quicker because the information is already there. Yes, and so it becomes easy. I can see that right now with my daughter right now. She remembers so easily, and it's because we've been using words for inconsiderate, you need to be concise, I tell them words like these, you need to appreciate, you need to be kind, friendly, you need to be considerate, and she remembers even the tough terms, like the big words like prolegomenon,
So you help to build the vocabulary from a young age, even though they may not understand.
It stays there, and so they remember later on. So how do I remember how to spell that word so easily? Because they see it, they hear it, So it's very interesting. From early age, stimulate them.
So talk, read, interact together, do toys. You talk about exposure to different environments and things as well.
Take them to the zoo, let them explain, take them to a museum. Belize have quite a few museums all over the place. We just don't go there, you know. Take them to the zoo and talk with them about the animals. Don't just walk through the zoo. No, this and stop by the sign and read the little signs for them. They might not picture it and they're gazing at the crocodile, but they will hear and eventually their eyes will glance. It will capture, because your eyes and your ears is like a camera. It's just like a camera. It captures it. And this is what parents need to understand. The more they capture in later years, it's going to be excellent. And research has shown that, you know, that your child becomes a better, more successful, more productive at later years.
What I find interesting is the idea of reading to the child and having the child read to you as well.
Absolutely.
It allows for the development of vocabulary and cognitive skills as well.
Yes.
In terms of them being able to learn and understand certain things and communication.
Right.
I find that when I talk to my daughter, I read to her or she reads to me, we're able to communicate and converse at a certain level. And I think the idea of that goes a long way for future reference,
learning,
so to speak, future learning as well. In terms of that child being able to recall certain things, being able to remember and quickly pull information.
Yes, because what happens is when that happens, synapses are being created. See, and this is what we need to understand. I wish I had a picture there of the synapses. And let me just basically describe it in a metaphor. It's like planting these orange trees in an orchard and just a little plantling. After 5 years, when you fly over that, you see like a forest, and that is what happens to the brain, you know, the synapses. You know, it becomes these little cells, and eventually after 5 years to 8 years stimulation, it becomes like a forest. They're all started to connect, and the more connection you create, the better it is, and that's the idea behind stimulation.
Which is why even language, different languages at an early age, if you can introduce them, is better. Even though they may not speak it, it'll be easier for them in the future.
That's true. And they do remember a lot of the language, the words, you know. It's easier for them to learn a new language, you know, at this early age.
And another interesting tidbit that you share with parents is don't lie to them.
Yes, don't lie to them. Don't tell them don't go outside because the gecko is going to eat you. No, gecko is not going to eat you. You know, you could tell them don't go outside because it's dangerous. You know, you might fall. You know, walk on the bridge not because you know
a monster.
No, you might fall off. You might get hurt. You know, be honest with them.
Practical.
And sometimes children, it is the experience. Don't touch the candle, it will burn you. That child is not going to understand that until they actually feel the heat, unfortunately. But that's the way. Now, we're not going to say to you to go about burning our children. No. That's not the idea. But that's what it is. Or you could remember when they ate the hot potato, say, that's burn. And they will remember, you know.
So, and it's an issue of trust that you speak about, yeah?
Yes.
So, I think we've covered quite a bit, but ultimately, let's leave some hands-on tools. So we spoke about reading, talking, exposing to new environments. What else can we do with children at an early age before preschool?
We can touch with them. We can exercise with them. We take them outdoor. We explore the environment outdoor. Teach them new words, teach them about people, teach them about characters, let them know behaviors. That's a good behavior. See, that's a nice thing that you just did. Excellent. See what he just did? That was wonderful. I love it. You know, so we need to expose them to it. That's not too nice. See, we don't want to do that. You know, somebody laughing at the little lady because they're in the wheelchair. So that's not nice. You need to be nice with them, you know. So we teach them these different social, emotional, behavioral attitudes.
And my last question, well, the last area I wanted to touch on is, when do you know when a child is ready for preschool?
We accept them at age 3. You know, at age 3, 2, 3. Before they're at the 3 by January. They are ready for preschool. Now, many parents think that, well, they're still my little baby, I'm going to wait another year. That's a whole year wasted, an entire year wasted. If you could get them in at age 3 and 4, 2 years in the preschool environment, that's amazing. They will perform way better in infant 1, infant 2, because we say, well, I'm going to preschool them at home. That's hard, because then when they get to school, first of all, their fine motor skills are not fully developed. And even sitting beside someone, your friend, you see, they don't know what that is to sit with five,
socialize.
right, to socialize with 5, 6 children around you, and then there's this figure in front of you talking. They don't know that. They might know it. Some parents say, well, I'm going to homeschool the child for, no preschool, and they know a lot. Yes, but how about the social factor? The social factor, which is the most important, even more important than the academic factors. You know? So for them to get along, because we need that. We need to get along for an early age.
All right, fantastic. Well, we want to thank you for joining us this morning. And if people want to get access to your pamphlets or whatnot, how do they get in touch with you?
They could contact me. Come to my school, La Isla Cariñosa Academy in Keycocker. We're on Facebook also, La Isla Cariñosa Academy. And I just want to mention one book. This book is written by Dr. Pamela Cook, and she authored this book. And it's a book that has information for Belize, from Belize, and most of the pictures are at Belize. So I'm available at La Isla Cariñosa Academy anytime.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Jamal Galvez as we talk about manatee conservation. Stay tuned.